Welcome back, everyone. Our next presenter is Fidha Waheed, presenting on the relationship to the Dark Mother God. Please welcome Fidha.
The Mother of the Universe says, "Remember that just as each of you and every other being is a part of me, so too every demon is a part of my great body. This is my sacred and most mysterious play." The Dark Mother is an aspect of our Mother God who expresses herself through energy, through Mother Earth as goddess, and in her human form. Her attributes come through all forms of her manifestations, but in this presentation, I will focus on how her dark attributes relate to her intrapsychic healing and growth functions in the psyche. The Dark Mother has been described in countless ways by the spiritual traditions of the world. I cannot do justice to the complexity of her personality and her many forms, so I share a small intro to who she is through my own eyes and experience. She's infinitely compassionate and yet incredibly powerful. She knows rage and violence and will not hesitate to use them to bring about change. She is swift, cutting in her influence, and is invested beyond measure in all of her children. She is truly ruthless with those who go against her, and she is indifferent to those who are indifferent towards her. She will take an invested child through a harrowing, violent experience to teach them the power and potential of her love. Now that I have introduced you to her, I will use object relations to help us understand the Dark Mother's intrapsychic structure and function. Ana Maria Rizzuto, a psychoanalyst and object relations scholar, described how the human mother and God-mother representations are interconnected in the psyche from a young age. In reviewing the object relations mother, I will introduce both her human and divine functions. Object relations transformed Freudian psychology of the father into a psychology of the mother. Object relations holds the mother at the very origin of human psychological experience, trauma, and development. Klein, our wise matriarch of object relations, viewed the mother in terms of the good breast and the bad breast. The mother was all-powerful in the psyche of the infant, but had little human agency outside of the child's fantasy world. Winnicott helped to bring in a little of the mother's actual self outside of the child's fantasy of her. Klein's good mother, bad mother, good breast, bad breast, shifts with Winnicott to the good enough mother, but for him, the not good enough mother or bad mother exists primarily to explain the good enough mother in relation to the child. The mother's own agency within this object relations unit is again left out. If we look at today's theoretical understandings of object relations, we find feminist views challenging and shaping the object relations of the mother. One leading figure in this movement is Julia Kristeva, who elaborated on Andre Green's dead mother. The dead mother is a mother who is too powerful for a fragile psyche to hold. She becomes dead in the psyche of her child, leaving a hole in the psyche where the mother should be. There is so much more I could say about this and how this deadness comes about, but for this research, for this presentation, it is simply enough to understand the mother's powerful agency in relation to her child, and how the young psyche is not able to take her in.
Turn your cell phones off, please.
Object relation shows us that as much as the object in question, in this case the Dark Mother, lives inside of us in our internal worlds, she must exist outside of us too, and needs to be reckoned with in equal measures internally and externally for true healing and growth to happen. Object relations tells us that the psychological loss, the emotional unavailability of a mother, is the first trauma of the individual. The trauma of birth, of leaving the mother's body, is a literal traumatic loss of her. And at the very basic level of human experience, separation from other and intrusion by other causes trauma. The separation of birth is an intrusive act on the infant's world. The child is too vulnerable and developmentally young to take in a bad breast or a bad mother, to use the Kleinian phrase. The work of taking in the good mother is one of the first psychological endeavors that a child must engage. However, the work of taking in the bad mother is a mature emotional endeavor, and one that a child cannot process. This work of taking in the bad breast or mother, or reviving the dead mother, and working with it is a task for a later developmental phase, and this phase is what this presentation is concerned with. If the human mother is tied to the God representation in the psyche from the start, we can easily see the potential of this working through. A basic object relations tenet is that symbol formation in the psyche is an important act of reparation. What better way to invoke a working through than with a power that can hold all experience, God or the goddess? In my view, Western psychology desperately needs a myth that will take into account the role of the dark maternal in psychological healing and growth. How can we find a way to contain traumas and sufferings too large for our individual psyches to hold? It is my belief that therapists, as modern-day medicine women and men, who help heal the deepest of traumas, often have responsibilities too large for their own individual psyches to hold. This is why the Dark Mother, in my view, is needed, for it is through her that we have a chance to engage the deepest sufferings of our lives. Feminist theology shows us that devotion to her is part of the origins of our spiritual heritage as humans. The first humans known to exist revered her. Feminist theology shows us how goddess spirituality was suppressed and even lost in the rise of our patriarchal world. If you dig down deep enough, far enough, into any of the world's major or patriarchal religions, you will find the goddess. In my view, you will even find it in the youngest world religions, Islam. Feminist theology aims to revision and reclaim the goddess in all of her aspects. Her dark aspect can most immediately be seen in our external world through the devastation of our Mother Earth. This external devastation is a mirror to her loss inside each and every one of us. Affect is the most archaic inscription of inner and outer events, Julia Kristeva, an object relationalist, said. So now I'd like to turn our attention to devotion and what devotional systems have to say about being in relationship to a Dark Mother. Kakar, an Indian psychoanalyst of the British school, object relations school, says, born of rupture, desire's fate is an endless quest for the lost object. I would add that it is a quest for the fullness of the lost object, and that it must always be an object composed of both dark and light. In my view, devotion starts historically, physiologically, and intrapsychically with the mother, human and divine. Yogananda said that it is a mother's love that is closest to the unconditional love of God. If she can hold all sufferings, and she, as her darkness, invokes things dark so that they may be brought into the light. Devotional wisdom tells us that we can be in relationship to God in intricate ways involving our whole selves, including our personalities, our passions, and all of our sufferings. All can be directed towards God in devotion. One uses an intuitive sense of object relations on a devotional path. In devotion, God can be our mother, our father, our friend, master, or lover. The devotional systems of India are likely, to my knowing, the most elaborate systems that specifically focus on devotion to mother gods or goddesses in both their dark and light aspects in a devotional way. I would like to share this excerpt about Kali from Kinsley, a scholar of religious studies who has written extensively on Hindu goddesses. Kali dwells where dissolution takes place. In terms of devotion, worship, sadhana, practice, this denotes the dissolving of attachments, anger, lust, and other binding emotions, feelings, and ideas. The heart of the devotee is where the burning away takes place. It is in this heart that Kali dwells. Of the same dark energy in the form of Durga, whose third eye Kali comes out of, Laura Amazon, a teacher, scholar of women's spirituality, and graduate of CIS, says, Durga is often the embodiment of righteous female rage, that when provoked swells up against the injustices perpetuated against humanity. As the remover of fear and difficulty, she finds no obstacle too great to overcome. She embodies the profound strength, courage, complexity of women's emotional and sexual power. Durga's anger does not oppress, it cuts and it liberates. Perhaps the greatest lesson Durga teaches is for us to not turn away from our suffering, but to learn to confront it, to walk through it, no matter how terrifying that reality may be. I would like to conclude this presentation. Let me just make sure I'm on the right slide. I got carried away when I talked. Okay, there we go. I would like to conclude this presentation with an elaboration on how the Dark Mother's personality interfaces with my own personal, spiritual, and psychological development at this time. I will share this experience with the hope that it will help to paint a more vivid picture of the healing and growth functions of a Dark Mother God. I have felt established in the unconditional loving presence of the Divine Mother for some years, and felt through my own therapy that I had worked with and through a good deal of my trauma. This was my state of affairs 2 years ago. Little did I know that her dark aspect had yet to awaken in me. In these past 2 years since, a series of traumatic events in my outer life have forced me to confront the trauma of my life that is still unworked. This is my family trauma, intergenerational trauma, and even collective trauma that I feel is being worked through me right now. These events woke up a rage inside of me that I have never known could exist. I know what it feels like internally now to not just be a victim, but a perpetrator. I know what it feels like to want to fight, to maim, and even kill. I know the bottomless pit of pain and ecstatic desire. I had to wake up to the intensity of the dark in myself. I could not work through these energies or with these energies without the Dark Mother and her loving guidance and transformation. Having been forced by her into an initiation of these dark energies, I feel a protective and compassionate capacity now inside myself that is larger also than I have ever known. I trust myself, and with others, because I accept and work with these dark energies. Without her, this work would not be possible. I hope I have given you a glimpse today of the vast potential for the Dark Mother and her holding and healing capacity. She wants us to work with her to uplift humanity into her light. Finally, I'd like to share a poem in reverence to her by one of her devotees, May Sarton. It is time for the invocation. Kali, be with us. Violence, destruction, receive our homage. Help us bring darkness into the light, to lift out the pain, the anger where it can be seen for what it is, the balance wheel of our vulnerable and aching love. Put the wild hunger where it belongs, within the act of creation. Crude power that forgoes a balance between hate and love. Help us be the always hopeful gardeners of the Spirit, who know that without darkness nothing comes to birth, as without light nothing flowers. Bear the roots in mind, you, Dark One, Kali, awesome power. Thank you. I'm open to questions. Yeah,
So I'm wondering how if you would be willing to share how you personally connect to the mother, you know, that if you would be willing to share one of your methods or one of the ways in which you make that connection.
to the Dark Mother?
Yes.
I have no choice. I don't have a method. You know, this is a forced initiation. She has taken over my process. My mental functioning is not so great these days. I am still figuring that out. Yeah, how to work with her. But what I can say is that I have to unleash powerful energies within me. I have to let them out. I have to work with them, and I'm beginning to do so. And that feels really good. That feels really good.
I guess my question has to do with how I heard when in your presentation that you feel a certain protection also, which is a part I'm fascinated by. Because it seems like a contradiction, right? Like you're allowing all this like really strong dark energy to move through you, but at the same time, so I guess that's what I'm wondering. How do you connect with that protective field?
Because, as I said, I feel like I know what it's like to be a perpetrator and a victim. I know both of those roles really well. And so, you know, although I've been initiated into the dark, I'm a child of the light. Did that answer your question, or was there more?
You know, it just sounds like the process is taking you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I was just, I guess my question was more, how do you feel protected when such a surge?
How do I feel protected?
Again, container.
Yeah.
Contain.
Yeah. Well, I need grounding intensely. I sleep on the hardwood floor. I need a lot of physical holding. Like I could have 5 people get up on top of me and still have the strength to try to push them off. You know, I've got incredible strength inside me. And that's a part of how I feel powerful and strong, and like I have this protective capacity that other people feel when they're with me. Now.
Yeah, as far as I'm understanding that she's taking over you.
What that is. No way.
The Dark Mother. So as far as I understand that energy of the Dark Mother is taking over you and you are embodying her in a way. And I'm curious, how do you the energy wants to come out, and it can be destructive, right? It's
incredibly destructive.
Anger, and it wants to express itself.
It wants to kill.
It wants to kill. How do you contain it? Like, what do you do to make sure that people around you are safe, and at the same time to embody this energy and to let her leave?
I have to have really safe containers. I have a really good therapist I have really good friends who help me work through this stuff. And thankfully, I'm also working with holistic sexuality with Marina, and that's been really helpful too, to help welcome the dark energies inside me. I was not an angry person before. I thought I knew what anger was. I thought I worked some of this stuff out in therapy. I knew it intellectually. Now I know it experientially. So as far as protection, how do I protect myself, hold myself through it? It's a really difficult task. It's a really difficult task. I'm blessed to have Pinky, my dog, back in my life. She provides tremendous holding, along with a woman who I take care of, who's 94. They provide a lot for me in that regard. I feel like going into the dark energies, they take me over, and then afterwards I'm completely exhausted and I have to rest. And there's no choice, and it's just this cycle. It's just the cycle of rage, despair, and then complete holding.
Do you feel you're being purified every time after this energy takes you over and then lets you go?
I feel I'm becoming more alive, more myself, more in my body in this world. Yeah, Renee.
So, pardon me for being so literal about this, but when you say it takes you over, do you mean that you'll be just having a normal day and then you'll just have this surge? And
It can manifest emotionally, it can manifest physiologically. Yeah.
So, like you might have a physical symptom, is that what you're
I
saying?
have energy problems. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, incredible energy.
So you get too much energy or too
I have
lose your energy?
I have powerful energy coursing through me. It makes it hard for me to sleep sometimes. The right side of my body shakes sometimes. Ask me the question one more time. So.
Just what exactly happens? Because you pray about these energies, but I don't quite understand.
Yeah, well, my understanding is that, the mother has woken up the energetic channel in a powerful way in my body, and as these psychological places that haven't been worked through in my body get activated, the energy gets stuck there, and it just causes this pow explosion, So that's one of the ways. Yeah, there.
Do you work with any creative processes to help focus that energy at all, or is there anything that you can do to visualize or like make a visual imagery of some of what you're going through, like painting or any other type of creative activity?
Like painting, you said?
Or just any kind of creative
Creative
activity that's more
activity.
visual, so maybe like the next day you can step back and look and say, oh, this is kind of, and maybe get a visual imagery.
Yeah, I would like to do more of that. I can't read books right now. I'm in school, I can't read books. Physical activity is really good for me, working out. Yeah. I think that would be awesome, Larry. I think that would be really good for me. Haven't done it. Thank you.
Do you work within any specific traditions or with any deities in particular?
I work with the Divine Mother in all her forms, however she chooses to manifest for me. In particular, I work with Mother Mira. Mother Mira from Germany is my living divine teacher. But I found her through Sri Aurobindo and Mother Mira Alfasa. And they were my first spiritual guides. Yeah.
I just want to thank you for making these connections, especially with object relations as a more feminine or maternal approach towards working with the dark mother energy, specifically Kali. I really relate to this, and it has me thinking a lot about what sort of male forms there are.
Yeah.
Because for me, at least when we hear like, dark father, is not really, at least for me, doesn't have very positive implications, or healing implications. You know, we have like the Yahweh God in the West, that's this very destructive God that but yet lacks almost the healing potential that I see or experience in dark mother energy such as Kali.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like Pluto. I mean, I'm thinking like, what do we have? Like Hades. I mean, what are the real masculine or male forms of dark energy that also have a healing capacity? And I don't know. I mean, that's just something that your work has really brought up for me in a really powerful way. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, those are very good questions. I'd be interested to hear more about what you find out if you kind of do your own research.